So first off, Joe, it's really good to see you again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say that you spent a couple of weeks at the what in Portugal.
Yeah, Sumadarama is the
Uh,
name of it. And I was there for 2.5 weeks at the beginning of November.
How did you find the place?
I went to Dhammapala last summer, and I like the Thai forest tradition. And on the Forest Sangha website, they just list all the places in Europe. And then I emailed them and asked if I could stay. And I said I was coming from a long way, so could I stay longer than a week? Because usually they say they only let you stay for a week. And since I've been practicing a long time, they're like, yeah, you can stay longer. And I stayed 2.5 weeks there.
Mm-hmm. And so you had a question about
Sexuality specifically.
sexuality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think is a super common question that is talked of, like, yeah, what do you actually do when you're a sexually active person and you enjoy sexuality in your personal life, and then you are in an environment where it's not like at that point it's not a mental thing of like, oh, I really want sexuality. It felt more like a physical, like, how in the world would I do this if this was more than 2.5 weeks?
All right. Well, here's the point: is that it's built into our genes. You could say that whatever it is that is the self-preservation mechanism that you have as part of your instinct, that spills over to not just the preservation of you individually, but the propagation of the species. And so you could say then that that DNA or that nature in us is playing a dirty trick.
Hmm.
And what is the dirty trick? Is that it teaches us at that very, very deep DNA level. It's not even at the gut level. It's even deeper than that, down to the
Right.
DNA level. They make it, or the DNA makes it appear pleasurable, that we
Yeah.
want it, that we're attracted to it,
But it's
right?
also that I'm 35, and so I'm at the prime age for, like, you need to have children, like that sort of, like,
Mm-hmm.
thing
Right. You're
is.
coming to the end of the that part of life.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah.
And you could say that about 35 would be the top of the hill,
Hmm.
and that sexuality kind of slides downhill
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that, um, to where sort of you know that they've talked about it in the sense of 7 year cycles,
Hmm.
that a child is born and then he doesn't even become sexually active until 6 or 7 years old. And then the next cycle happens when he's 12, 13, 14 years old. And that's when stuff really kicks in. And then 21, and that's marriage age. And then 28's having kids age. And then 35, you're kind of at the peak
Yeah.
and going sort of downhill at 42 and then 48 and like that. And so
Yeah.
at the end of the cycle, you still have the interest, the curiosity, and the desire, but you don't have the equipment anymore. That's why they are selling so much Viagra to
Right.
old men,
Right.
is to make that change. Because we are taught in our society to like it, because the society is ignorant. And yet you can see that over time, over the centuries, in fact, that sexuality in the old days was much, much more rampant.
Yeah.
That rape and incest were common in the Middle Ages. And also women dying in childbirth, and that children would often die uh, as children. So women would have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids in the hopes that one or two of them would make it to adulthood.
Right.
Okay, So,
and maybe there wasn't such deep planning and deep thinking about it. It just was kind of like, well, this,
right. In other words, humans operated by instinct.
Yeah.
And only the Buddha and those who were looking at what he was talking about started to living their lives with wisdom rather than instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And now in modern society, even that in fact the medicine, there's another way of looking at it, and that is that medical science has been really, really late coming, really Johnny come lately. That we needed medical science thousands of years ago, and it didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so religion said, I'll fill the bill. And so sexuality became an issue of religions to try to make people safe. All right. And one way of staying safe is abstinence, or maybe having only one sexual partner for your whole life. But in fact, in the old days of Judaism and in the time of Jesus and whatnot like that, we talk about old Jewish culture and whatnot. Jewish culture was polygamous.
Mm-hmm.
So where did this monogamy come from? The answer is that it came from Rome in the early days of Rome. That Rome was kind of like a pirate's cove where there was merely only men. They were robbers, they were thieves, and then they would go hide in this 7 hills of Rome to escape whatever authorities that the Etruscans and whatnot had. Okay, and so the Romans then would go and steal women from those other places and bring them back to Rome. So in Rome, what happened was such a shortage of women that if a guy had 4 or 5 women, he got ganged up on and his wives were taken and he was left with knife wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how monogamy got started, was that if you've got 2 women, I want one of them.
Mm.
And so monogamy got started in Rome, even though the Romans, even in the time of the emperors, they would always have a mia noi, which is the Thai word for a second wife. Mia noi, that means a little wife. That in
Mm-hmm.
fact the story is in Thailand is that the first wife gets the house and the mia noi gets the car. That's the joke.
Yeah.
Um, and mistresses have been common
Yeah, of course.
because and the reason for that is because men could follow that instinctual urge that they had with little consequences, to where women, it was a huge consequence about whose baby is this and all of that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so medical science has come in, and now we have the morning after pill, we have abortion pills, we have a huge industry around condoms, vasectomies, all kinds of things that took the reality and the dangers, most of the dangers, out of our desires for pleasure through
Right.
sexuality. And so,
Well, we still have the dukkha that it can cause between people and the complications and the jealousy and all of that.
that's what we have to start looking at. That's where the Buddha's teachings come in, is never mind all the physical dangers and the physical problems. That in fact, one of the things I think that influenced him a lot was that his mother died within 7 days after he was born.
Right.
And more than likely, it was complications from the birth. That the story of him coming out and starting to walk immediately has to do with the possibility of him being a breech birth.
Right. Okay.
Other than the head coming out first, the feet come out first, like I think
Yeah.
deer and other animals, they come out feet first.
Well, usually I've had sheep before. Usually how they come out is they come out like with their hands like this, and then like they come out that way. But I don't know how it is for other animals.
Right. But sometimes they come out feet first.
Yeah,
The
they do.
back, I mean, back legs.
Yeah.
back legs come out first.
Yeah.
And that's often very dangerous for the mother.
Yeah.
For that to happen. So we have two different kinds of problems. One is the physical problems that medical science has mostly been taking care of, but the emotional side still exists in modern society.
Yeah.
This is why divorce is over 50%, is because they made it easy to have divorce.
Yeah.
That in fact, one of the statistics is that in California, during the 1950s, the murder rate was high. A lot of unsolved murders. And then they changed the divorce laws to make divorce easier, prenuptial agreements and all kinds of things, to where in the old days it was what they called a community property state.
Yeah.
And after they changed the laws in the 1950s, the murder rate dropped in half. Because divorces became possible. You know, the Catholic Church, they didn't want to have people having divorce, and that caused a huge war. I would think that the Catholics' position on sexuality, I mean, it really had something to do with the way that Henry VIII confiscated all the monasteries and literally destroyed Catholicism in England.
Yeah.
Because they didn't like that he was having. But you see, in a way, you could say that religion is out of their territory.
Right.
They don't have any say-so about sexuality. What they should stay with is, let us say, finding the kingdom of God within you.
Yeah.
So that we can, in fact, have a comfortable, happy life without needing to go for that kind of dangerous entertainment.
Yeah.
And the attachments and the jealousies and all of that kind of stuff that happens. And so when young men like yourself are getting really into the Dhamma, one of the things that we have to keep remembering is how dangerous it still is.
Yeah, of course.
If you lay a girl, she owns you.
Yeah. She's gonna run through your head in the meditation. Like that's for sure.
Yeah, right. She lives in your head, and
Yeah.
and often she has not just invading your mind without her knowing about it, but she also has you in her mind.
Yeah.
And
So
so
you know, one thing I have a question about. So you often have this thing of saying I like it, but I don't need it, like the
right,
Ajahn Sumedha thing. But
right.
like so you can have that, but then and I really feel that, I experience that, right? And but at the
I
same
like it, but
time,
I don't want it because it's dangerous.
right, because I see that, you know, and if it
But
happens, it's
then you
fine.
go back and want it again.
It's not even that I want, like, honestly, I don't know if it's that I want it even. It's just, I don't know. If it appears, it appears. If not, is kind of how it's felt for a while for me. But then just in an environment of a monastery, in an environment of, okay, now I for sure can't have it, then it becomes more of a, like, a thing for me. Then it becomes more of a, because it's like somebody telling me, like, like you can't have this now, and then they're taking away the candy from the little kid, kind of, you know. But
Right, but you're looking at it from the wrong direction,
okay,
because you were the one who came to the
we
what.
signed up, right? Exactly.
You were the
Yeah,
one who signed up for it.
yeah,
And often young men will often sign up for that or go live in the what, because they have seen how dangerous relationships are.
well, and just
Uh,
the world in general. I mean, you just like see it, and I mean,
Right,
my
it's all part
experience
of the world out there.
was
Exactly.
just like what am I doing here? Like, this is such a better environment. Why would I not want to
Mhm.
be in an environment like this where I can practice all day? Like,
Right. So
I don't know.
you can also look at the point about modern Western society. I would say more than half of all human behavior is based upon sexuality.
Okay,
Half of the cars that are purchased as
right, that's
chick
true.
magnets.
Yeah, that's true.
All of the makeup, all of the fashion, I mean, can you imagine a fashion show where there was no sexuality involved at all?
Right.
Okay, this is the point is that we are a society of both looking for pleasure, looking for delights, and also because of the religious background, we're told no.
Right.
And so we're caught in this bind of sexuality of, oh, I really want it, which is promoted by the society, and oh, you're not supposed to get it, which is promoted by society,
Yeah.
catching everybody in a double bind.
Yeah.
And here you are, even blaming the watch for it.
Oh, I'm not blaming the Watts. I'm definitely. I don't want to say that I'm blaming them. It's just more the because I realize the logic of that. Obviously, when I'm there, I realize like, hey, like I'm so happy to be here. I'm so thankful that I have an environment where I can be taken care of, and it feels wonderful. The compassion everybody has in that environment and the love everybody has. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just that's the hindrance that comes up. This story, and then you see it, and you're like, ah, that's kind of a silly thought, that
Right.
that you have.
So
Like
if
we all have these crazy thoughts. I when I was sitting there, I had so many crazy thoughts. The number of people that I wanted to just beat up and like get in a fight with that came up in my meditations. Like I still have some work to do. You know.
Well, the work to do is to see those kind of unwholesome thoughts
Yeah.
because they're ignorant.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the second noble truth of greed, lust,
Yeah.
desire, wanting that car, wanting that money, wanting that house, wanting all of that stuff so that you will be worthy to get that piece of ass because that's the bottom line on it. And in fact, that's you see that in politics a lot. Why do men want power other than the power over other men to take what they've got?
Mm.
And that women suffer from the same thing. It is built into our genes.
Yeah.
And the question is, can you wake up to that? Can you stop seeing your greed ignorantly? Can you stop seeing your aversion ignorantly, like you want to beat that guy up? All right.
Right.
You're jealous of him. He's got something that you want.
I don't know
And
if it's
so,
just it's all maybe it's holding on to the past and holding on to past stories and not letting it go, you know?
right. But it's not so much of holding on and letting go, it's ignorantly
Yeah.
holding on.
Yeah.
Ignorantly so. So
Yeah.
when you see these thoughts come up, you have a choice about how you're going to handle it.
Right.
You can either throw it out, mollify it, or do something to make life easy
Yeah.
rather than something comes up like with the story that you mentioned about Achan Samedo.
Yeah.
Instead of it coming up and now we want it, I'm going to disrobe because I want laid,
Hmm.
right? That's the whole thing that happens. In fact, that's I think is one of the main reasons why Westerners do that. They disrobe because they want to get laid.
Mm.
I've even heard one Thai, actually he was Laotian, and he was saying that he was going to disrobe because he wants to have a family.
Hmm.
Now that word family, that's the key word. He can't say I want to go get laid.
Yeah.
So he says, well, I want to go have a family, knowing that that stuff is built into our genes.
Yeah.
It's desire, okay? And there's a lot of stuff that's built into our genes. Territorial instincts, nesting or herding instincts, the desire for humans to want to get along with each other is part of the reason why there's so much warfare.
Yeah.
Is because of that tension between the nest and the territory and what's outside of the territory. So everything that's in my home, everything that I know, everything that's local, including all of the relationships that I have, are good. And those people who wear turbans are bad. Those
Right.
people who wear boots like I do are good people, and those who wear slippers are bad.
Right. So you start to
That's
get this
built.
separation mindset instead of seeing that it's, all that we're all in the same sort of, thing. We're all dealing
Right.
with dukkha and we're all in the same boat
Right.
here.
Except that what's really the point is the ignorance of the unknown. Because we do have, and this is built into our genes too, is that predation or predators. If you know where the predator is, you can do something. And if you don't know where the predator is, you're lunch.
Mm.
And so this fear of the unknown also gives rise to people who want to know. Many monks, especially Western monks, they read and they read and they read the sutras. They want to know, they want to know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to know,
Yeah.
instead of recognizing, oh, it's because I want to know. Why don't I just relax and be happy?
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm not going to know enough to relax and be happy, but I can just relax and be happy by seeing this desire to know.
Yeah, in the monastery, one of the most popular rooms is the library. That you see a lot of the Westerners come and they just sit down and just pour through the books. And yeah, I was kind of sitting there like, I don't know if you're gonna find it in there. Like that's, but it's how we're conditioned. We're conditioned to have so much stimulus, and then to go to an environment like that, it's shocking for people, and they look for any
Mm-hmm.
escape, and the escape is, well, there's a library with a bunch of books, so there I can find my my little thing to hit that box in my mind.
Right. That's
Continue the
the
conditioning.
entertainment quality.
Yeah.
Now, what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, by the way, talks about it as he adds it as a requisite. I would actually add a sixth requisite, but the Buddha talked about only 4 requirements. These are required: just enough food, just enough housing, just enough clothing, and just enough medical care. And yet there's a whole lot of people who are homeless in America who do not have adequate housing. Their
No.
clothing is not adequate. They don't have an ability to wash. They don't have any medical attention. So they're in pretty bad shape because they don't have the actual requirements which are going
Yeah.
to be fulfilled for you at the Wat.
Yeah.
But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa adds the 5th one, and he calls it, wrongly translated, I think, by Santikaro, entertainment.
Mm.
A better way to translate it would be time structuring. We have the
Right.
requirement of 24 hours a day. How are we going to spend our time?
Right.
Can you spend your time just watching the mind saying, aha, I saw that one. Oh, look at that desire come up. I saw that too. And start having fun at watching how the mind works.
Right.
That's entertainment.
It is. Yeah.
That's some of the best entertainment. That's where all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bliss and joy and all that comes from.
I know.
But we're not in the habit of doing that. We're in the habit of reading books and doing stuff with the internet. In the old days, it was watching television and all of that kind of stuff. Is we go there for the entertainment purposes, okay? And the 6th one that I add is transportation,
Mm.
okay? That if you're going to go to the Wat, you got to get to the Wat.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Now, in the time of the Buddha, they had feet.
Right. You just walk. Right.
And because it was local enough, any place that you want to go, even if it was a long trip, they would walk a little bit, rest a while, walk some more, camp for the night, get up and start walking for Bendabat. And after they walk in that direction and gather enough food, they'll stop, they'll eat, rest a while, and then start walking again. This is how Buddhism was spread all over Asia, is by the foot.
Yeah.
And that modern times, sometimes the Wats are really far. They're too far for us to walk. So we have that requirement. Thailand's going to take a plane trip. Then you're going to have to ride on a boat. Then you're going to have to take a motorcycle taxi or whatever. But you can get there. But this is something that's required, and that if we can take these things and recognize just enough food, just enough clothing, just
Yeah.
enough housing. And then, in fact, in the sutra, by the way, all of this is in the Sabha Asava Sutta, number 2 in the Majjhima Nikaya,
Okay.
where it actually talks about gadflies and mosquitoes.
Right.
To avoid them, to stay away from the vermin by having an adequate housing.
Yeah.
Also, when the weather is bad, we need to have protection from the cold and the heat. And so we wear clothing also to protect the private parts is mentioned. So this is the mentality, and being married and having a wife seems like a great big burden. I mean, think about it.
I've been married once, so yeah, I know how it is.
Yeah. And so whenever you go, whenever you travel, look at a big burden. You've got to carry a wife on your shoulders. You've got extra luggage to carry.
Yeah.
Sometimes she doesn't even want to go on the trip.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at it from the inconvenience of these requisites, this is part of our waking up to recognize that it's not actually the act of sex that is the issue. It's all of the equipment and burdens and feelings and all of that go with it. And that one point is that most of the people who were really close to the Buddha, followed him, listened to what he had to say, did not ordain.
Right.
That they stayed as what is normally referred to as householders, but another way of looking at it is the ones who had property. The caste that he came from were wealthy. And that the story would go is that the wealthy guy doesn't have to join the Sangha and go live in the woods with the poor guys who don't have any other choice. But he can sit on the porch of his or piazza of his plantation and let his wife and all the employees, or maybe servants, or maybe slaves, do everything for him, and he can sit there and just enjoy his life, meditate, or practice anapanasati. Practice being happy with what happens rather than being angry when things don't go the way that he wants to go.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that you have to ordain in order to follow the practice of the Buddha.
No.
But it depends upon one's circumstances. And always,
well, and when one thing about that, it's hard to create the circumstance in the lay world. I mean, I've been trying to create circumstances for good practice. It's hard to find other people to be around. It's hard to create the circumstances. It's pretty easy to go to a monastery or a wat and it's already set up for you, for a condition for practice. I practice at home and it's great. And I'm very happy with my life. But there's still this factor of you're around other people who are not there, and then you can try to spread your joy to them, but you're like a lone warrior.
That's what we're doing on this the Skype. That's what the Discord is for. Let's start having some noble friends. I invite you to start posting, to start reading, and that in fact the website that we've got, the Open Sangha Foundation, the primary word is Sangha.
Yeah, of course.
Let's have community. That's why we have the comments and the messages system, and the emailing is so that we can stay in touch with one another. To where most websites, in fact, almost all the websites that I've ever seen, whoever did the website, whatever organization, their website is about that organization only.
Yeah.
So a different example would be places like GoSit or BuddhaNet actually have a list of all of the watts, but that's all that they have. Is you go there, you get the URL for the what, and now you go read that what page. But this is set up for community so that people can find teachers, people can find student friends, they can find whats to go to, they can find centers, whatever it is. And so it's a different kind of website. It's not selling anything. It's a community site for people to join together. Something like, in a way, LinkedIn, except that LinkedIn is all about getting a job. It's an ordinary kind of site. This is the only one that I know of that has the spiritual quality of LinkedIn, to where we can link in with others to have the friends. And so I invite you to take advantage of that, because you're actually here complaining that all the people that you deal with are ordinary people that are having ordinary worries.
Yeah, and I do communicate with people online. I mean, still within like the Sangha. I mean, I haven't been actively participating as much, but I still have a group of people that I talk to online. But it's a little bit different talking online and in real life. But you are right that is a resource that we have. And I mean, thankfully we have that, because we have something going on that that helps to keep us on the path.
So we have better options than just going to get laid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And yet that's what the whole society is built upon, that. And that there's another point that needs to actually be stated, and that is that it's mostly mental. The pride of getting laid. Oh, I want her, and now I've got her, and all of that. But the actual
Well, it's never
act of
satisfying,
sex,
though. Yeah.
it's not satisfying.
No.
As soon as you get laid,
Yeah,
you want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then the next day you're out looking for more.
Yeah, and as soon as you get that girl, that prize, then you're like, oh well, okay, that wasn't, that also wasn't the solution, like that's not the
that
thing.
We're all acting,
not filling the hole in my heart. I have to figure out something else to do this.
I have a hole in my heart, and it is shaped like that girl.
Yeah, that's how our mind thinks, anyways.
And the Christians keep saying, no, that hole in your heart is God shaped, that God will fit right in. But guess what? God keeps falling out of that hole, and now they're looking for the girl that's in the choir to fill that hole. Okay? Yeah. And the real point is that we need to have that hole inside left empty.
Okay.
Because that gives us space and freedom. If we have that hole inside and we try to throw a truck in there and a motorcycle and a bicycle and a skateboard and a whole wardrobe, it gets crowded in there and there's not a lot of room. Yeah. And we're still not satisfied with it. So we're trying to stuff the girl into that hole, and it never feels secure. Yeah. And so leaving that hole inside is the right way to go, and find that in that hole is great freedom. Yeah. We have freedom.
Well, then you have the freedom to actually love everybody. Like the thing that I notice when I actually get connected to it is I stop seeing one individual person and what I want out of them, and I can instead radiate loving kindness to everyone I see. No matter what age they are, no matter how old they are, no matter how fat they are, or ugly, or anything, you're like, oh, it's so they're lovely, and that's.
But you have to have that in that hole, that emptiness actually becomes a home, so that we feel at home. Yeah. When we feel at home and free, that's the source of the loving kindness, the friendship, the generosity, is because we learn to love ourselves. We learn to be at home ourselves. We learn to nurture ourselves rather than being critical. That our society is built upon criticism. Children are taught to be critical. We even place up it in a high standard of critical thinking, right? critical thinking means to take stuff apart and find out what's wrong with it, etc., like that, instead of accepting the things the way that they are. To
Right.
be able to love yourself, warts and all, means that now that you're friendly with your warts, you can actually investigate them and make choices about them.
Yeah.
But if you hate them and push them away, then we begin to lie to ourselves. We're in denial. Oh, I don't have that wart. That wart's not.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the girls to see that wart.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
hide that wart. I got to lie
Yeah.
about that wart. Okay. And
Yeah.
so if we can be nurturing to ourselves instead of critical,
Yeah.
that's when we get that comfort level that we're okay as we are. We're satisfied with the way life is.
Right.
And now we're not actually out there looking for either that chick magnet car or that magic pussy or the silver bullet or whatever it is that we're looking for, because we don't have that wholeness inside, because it's full of cars and bicycles and motorbikes and skateboards and an occasional girl that goes in and comes back out and is
So
never complete, never
So I
satisfied.
okay, so I still have the question that pops up of, but what like the physical aspect of this too, of you go from being sexually active to then cutting off sexuality when you're in an environment like that.
Guess what? Don't cut it off, but rather distract.
Mhm.
And we can
But
distract
it's
with
not. But
that in
it's
two
not even.
ways.
It's not even a mental thing of just more the physical part of your body where you feel physical changes in your body. If you go from being a sexually active
Yeah,
person to
you get
not,
horny, right?
well,
You wake up in the
your
morning
balls
with a
get
heart
super
on, right?
large, and you're
Yeah.
like, what is going on? Like this is I haven't felt this in a long time. This is really strange, you know. And then the day progresses, and it's fine, but you wake up and it's just different because I mean I haven't experienced that in a long time, you know.
Okay.
But
Well, instead of making it bad or wrong and worrying about it, the better thing to do is become distracted.
yeah,
Now, when that thing happens,
yeah.
speak of it like that, when that thing happens, we can start thinking about something else.
Yeah. So what I was doing is like, you know, you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and so I was like, well, I go meditate now, you know, and like obviously you're not going to go into the meditation hall with a heart on and sit there, you know, like it's gonna
Yeah, but going
it
to the meditation hall on the way there, it's not going to be so hard. And
right.
not
That's
only
what I'm saying
that,
is
but the
you go
hard on is
out there.
because you're thinking about it being a hard on.
No, I know. And so that's what I mean. Is like when like it immediately it fixes itself because you get up out of bed, you start putting your clothes on, and then you're like, oh well, now I go about my day. And it seemed to
Yeah,
repeat like that, you know, that
it,
seemed to be kind of how it was going.
the reality is there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
That this is something that comes out of our DNA and it comes up when we're asleep. Possibly it's because we're having sexual dreams,
Yeah.
but we can distract ourselves, and like getting out of bed and getting dressed and going to the meditation hall, and it's going to be limp by the time you get there
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
unless you're
yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
That it's in fact all mental. Almost all human sexuality is mental.
Yeah, I've realized I've had that realization, like for sure. Yeah, because I've tried having sex mindfully, and I found that I was like, this is actually really not enjoyable. Like to be really mindful of the whole experience and not make any noises or anything. You're like, this is actually kind of strange. Like, you know, it's
Hmm.
all in the storyline that I'm putting around it and the contact and
Right.
everything.
And the storyline is that, oh, I want her, oh, I've got to have her, oh, this is all and all and all.
I need to please her. I need to
I,
be this guy that can just like sweep her off her feet, and I need to act like this and feel like this. No, I have to feel my heart, and like all this storyline. That's where the feeling comes from. But the actual
hmm.
physical sensation, it's like anything else. It's like touching your arm or something. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's not any
It's not
different.
really a big deal.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
nothing much to it.
yeah,
Nothing much to it. It's all mental. We make it a big deal mentally.
yeah,
And so if you can distract yourself, and we can say it, in fact, there's two ways to distract ourselves. The first one we've just talked about, of just changing the subject, but the other one is actually more powerful. And that has the quality of, this is not me, this is not mine. The
Right.
body is doing that all by
Right.
itself, and
Right.
it's not my body, it's just a
Right.
body.
And it's a body that's been conditioned for 35 years to think a certain way, and we're trying to condition it
Exactly.
in a
And
different
all you
way,
have to
you
do is
know?
just change that to say,
Yeah.
hey, that's not me. I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm probably even better off without it,
Yeah.
but I can deal with it. It's just one of the warts. So now we begin to see it. Oh, it's just a wart that comes up from time to time,
Yeah.
and there's nothing to it.
That
But
makes
if we
sense.
go back to that societal thing, oh, you've got to get married. Oh, you need a family. Oh, you need to be fulfilled. Or children are the most enjoyable aspects of life. That's the biggest lie that there was ever told.
Yeah.
That, oh, you're
Yeah.
going to get all your joy from kids. And yet every young man has a fight with his dad all through his teen years, because the dad wants to get the pleasure from his son, and the son wants to get away from his dad, not give the dad pleasure by doing what dad tells you to do.
Mm.
That almost all dads want to live vicariously through their sons.
Yeah.
My dad wanted me to play tuba, so I
Yeah.
played tuba.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took me a long time to figure out that I'm playing tuba because my dad wants me to play tuba. I've got better things to do. I can tinker with a ham radio set. I can play with electronics. I can,
Yeah.
and so that's the whole point, was is that our dads, our family, influence us almost always, big deal, and almost always in unwholesome ways. That all the bad habits that dad had, he wants to give you.
Well, I don't know if he
Just
wants to, but he's just ignorant.
no,
And
no, he wants to ignorantly.
yeah, so I'm saying, yeah, he's ignorantly, like, I picked it up. I started drinking because dad comes home from work and has a 6 pack of beer. That's what you do. So
Hmm?
that's how I started living my early 20s. And then it took a long time to be like, oh wow, this probably isn't that wise to do this.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're getting a little bit deeper into it, and that's exactly the right way to look at it. Is that you can examine how much pleasure is it that, in fact, going for dates is a lot of work.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of work. You got to go shopping for clothes, and you got to go to the barber, and you got to go do this and go do that and buy some expensive stink or something like that. Got to have good wheels. You got to impress her, and you're. And now the girls, so I hear, is they all want tens. They don't want a guy who is a 7 or an 8. But in fact, Scott and I were talking about this not long ago, to where he is beautiful, he is handsome, he is strong, he is a sportsman, he's into water sports, he is an ideal pick, except that he's got no money. And so instead of
Well,
being a
and
10,
he
he's a
lives in
5.
California. Well, if he's in the right environment, that's not a hindrance either, because you just got to be around a bunch of hippies, and then they think it's an advantage if you don't have any money. Because
Yeah,
I'm in that situation too, and people like that because they're like, oh wow, you follow your dreams and you're into spirituality. You just have to find the right type of girls that are into that. But he's in California, so
hmm
it's different.
well,
But it's also
California is a
what
state
he's
of
searching.
mind also.
Yeah, yeah. But what he's searching for too, it's like, yeah, you keep searching for this perfect person, but I mean, and for me, I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like, well, I meet these people and it's nice hanging out with them, but I really, yeah, I don't want to have to go through all of the garbage that you described of, yeah, it's a lot of work, and
Hmm.
what's the end here? Like the end is the same. I'm going to end up in dying, and I'm
Right.
going to end up being, pain from the separation of this relationship, from somebody dying. Like that's the end, and I can
Uh-huh.
enjoy it. I can enjoy being around this person, but the same way I can enjoy meeting you, can enjoy meeting other friends, and
Uh-huh.
there's no difference.
Well, this is why I talk about it in the sense that your genes are playing a trick on you. They
Yeah.
want you to want sexuality because that's the way that the species is propagated, but it makes every one of us miserable.
Yeah.
That in fact the population is about hit its peak, and we could do quite well with a whole lot fewer people. But look, our entire economy is built upon growth.
Yeah.
And things are not going to keep growing.
No.
Women are not going to have so many babies because they have the power. They're taking their power back from men.
Yeah.
And so a lot of girls are not. I mean, I can see a time when Revlon and Max Factor go out of business.
Mm.
Girls don't have to paint their face anymore because they're not out shopping for guys.
Right.
That they found something that they can do with their lives that is entertaining, and sexuality is not so important. And with that, having babies, they've got better things to do with their time.
Mm.
That having children has been taught for so long that the best things in life have to do with having kids, and everybody can see that, hey, man,
Well, you can
having
still, I mean, you
children
can
is
still
a
be around
lot of work.
kids, you know, I mean, like you're around kids, and like, I mean, on the farm that I live on, there's kids that are next door, they come over and we cook together, and it's great. I love being around them, but then they go back home,
And then you go
and
back home.
you know, like
Exactly.
I get to, you know, so I get to, to me, I'm like, oh, this is great. This is great. Because it's nice being around kids, right? It's also, you can get extreme with it, and it can be, I meet a lot of 40-year-olds that I'm like, they're only around like 35, 40-year-olds, and they're not around old people. They're not around young people. They're not, and I don't know. There's also that extreme that people have been going to in our society where there's a separation. You're not around kids at all, you know?
Right. There's that other thing, and that is that granny wants kids.
Yeah.
Granddaughter's got to have kids so the granny has a baby to play with.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, that's one of the problems with our society. They should put daycare and children's facilities in old folks' homes.
I know. It's crazy. It's like, you know, all these old people are lonely, and then you have all these parents who don't want to raise kids, and you're like, hey, put these two groups together. That'd be great.
So
Yeah.
that the elderly can give the little kids some wisdom that they've gotten over time.
I know, it's crazy. It's so crazy. There's such a loneliness in old people. It's just crazy. It's, oh my God, that is something I haven't really thought about that, but that's totally true. Yeah.
So and in fact, you're pointing out that kids are not the joy that they're cracked up to be.
No.
For the young dude. That in fact it will interfere with his desires. It'll interfere with his spiritual life. All kinds of things are going on with that. And so when we begin to wake up to it, we can see that, oh, society is changing. As society wakes up, the population is going to go down.
Yeah.
Because of the education, the understanding, as well as having access to good medical care. And with those two things, both the physical and the emotional changes, the population is going to start having some big demographic shifts. It's already happening. It's happening in Japan. It's happening in Russia. It's happened in China, but that was because of the one-child policy and everything. But it's happening in India.
Yeah.
The World Health Organization has actually had quite a lot to do, because in India 50 years ago, every woman had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids.
Yeah.
Now it's under 3 and going down. And why is that? Because the women are waking up to, wait a minute, I am not the baby factory that I've been trained to be. I want to be something better than that.
Right.
And with that idea, we're going to have a much more liberated population, and more happiness is going to be coming if we can get people into the noble Sangha. Otherwise, it's going to be skateboards and flying helicopters and.
Isn't it dangerous though to think that more happiness is going to be coming? Because isn't that the storyline that we've been having for like 2,600 years of like, if we can just get people, then more happiness is going to come? And
that's the whole point is that happiness never comes, because everybody's looking for happiness in all the wrong places.
Right, exactly.
There's a song like that. It's looking for love in all the wrong places, because they're out there looking around instead of looking at the real
inside.
place that
Yeah.
they're going to have the happiness.
Yeah, I know. And it's so hard to explain this to people. Like, you know, I've been trying to tell them about my experience at the monastery, and it's if you haven't experienced it, then you just don't know, you know. And it's no amount of explaining in words is gonna do anything. But
Well,
you
the
know, you
teaching of the
just
Buddha is subtle and it's profound, but
Yeah.
basically the reason for it is because it sets up right that which has been overturned in our society. And so everybody is sitting on furniture, mental furniture that's upside down.
Yeah.
And they're used to having springs on their butt rather than having a nice cushion to sit on.
Mm.
And so that's why the Buddha Dhamma is not being well received, but it will when AI and when robotics and when all of the jobs are gone, and Christianity dies off. In fact, Christianity dying out is one of the major influences of why Buddhism is on the rise in the world.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, people are still looking for something, you know, and
And it's possible to find it through the teachings of the Buddha.
right. And it's actually something you can do, and you don't have to, you know, just rely on blind faith. Actually, when I was at the monastery, I met a guy he's raised Catholic, and he was like, yeah, I lost my faith, and I realized like there was no faith there, and then I just came to something where it said you didn't have to have faith as a prerequisite, and I thought that sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well,
and faith actually, and it builds, you know, because I have faith in the practice because of practicing, because I see the results in myself and I see the results in
but
others.
That's not faith.
Right,
Faith
well,
is
sadha, or whatever the word is.
well, shraddha.
Shraddha.
But it's confidence in the fact that you can do something for yourself. You see, that's the problem with atheism, is when they throw God out, they throw everything that's good about Christianity out.
Yeah.
And many people get really angry at Christianity, having been raised in Christianity, and they've become so disappointed with it that now that they're stuck. But they still have magical beliefs. And so a lot of the magical beliefs is what Buddhism is founded upon in the West. A lot of it is magical thinking, but at least they're coming in the right direction.
Yeah.
Of coming out of the rules, out of the rituals, out of the magical stories of Christianity into something that actually works. That Christianity teaches that you're broken, you've got an original sin, that you need Jesus. If you don't have, the story is if you don't have that plastic Jesus on the dashboard of your truck, you're going to wreck that truck. That's the story of Christianity. And the atheists are beginning to say, wait a minute, I can have a better life without any of that stuff, but they're still in misery. They're still unhappy, but there is still that wanting, that desiring, and so people are going to be looking around and finding that there are better things that they can do.
So I have a question that came up about the magical thinking thing. So about the feeling of it's quick, because I know we've been talking a long time. And this is going, how can I word this? So there's a feeling that there are synchronicities happening, and I realize that that's magical thinking, and I see that it's magical thinking.
No. Actually, waking up, you see more and more and more simultaneousness.
That's what I mean, is that I'm seeing it and I'm accepting that
it's real when you see it.
Okay.
There is coincidences.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And I don't ask why. I don't ask why it's happening. But there's too many where it's just like, this is too crazy. Like, it's not possible. Like, you know, I'm a mathematical person. I know the odds of this happening. It's not, you know, it doesn't work.
Except that the point is that as you're practicing more correctly, you're waking up and seeing what's going on, and you're beginning to see the wholeness of reality, that we're all together. And part of the evidence of that is all this synchronicity stuff that happens, all of this simultaneous. Why is that happening? Mathematically, it should not be if everything is random. But the
Yeah.
fact is, things are not random.
Yeah. Okay.
That noise is random, and we're learning to play music. We're
Yeah.
learning to get in harmony with things, and that's when we begin to see the harmony of things. For instance, earlier today, I was talking to Robert, and the thought occurred to me about Cat, and I started talking about Cat, and Cat's rolling right in. That was just another
Yeah.
example of
Yeah.
synchronicity.
Yeah.
You know, that why did I have him on my mind? Why did he come into my mind immediately right then? It's just because he was processed of coming into the yard. That's why he came to mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't see him until after I'd mentioned it to Robert. So this is
that really, it warms my heart, because I was scared to ask you, because I was like, oh, I'm feeling this so much, but he's gonna just say it's magical thinking, and yeah. So
no, the magical thinking is that there is magic in there. The fact
right.
is that it's real. If
Yeah.
we can start to recognize that we're influenced, that we are not the separate entity that our society has been teaching us, that you're all alone and you're going to have to learn to deal with society to get out of it what you want. And the reality is that, oh no, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And you can see that togetherness.
Yeah.
Oh, so many times on these videos that we were talking about. I got several that I remember. One was that I started to talk about a particular piece of music, and the girl says, we were playing it last night. It's sitting right here on the turntable. Another example was that I started talking about a profession about dishwashers, and the guy that I'm talking to turns out to be, and it blew him away, because he's a professional dishwasher. And so it just happens on a regular basis. And I think that it has to do with the fact that we get in tune.
Mm.
And as you get in tune, all kinds of synchronicities happen.
Yeah.
Serendipity is even a better word. I like serendipity a whole lot better than synchronicity.
Yeah.
Because synchronicity has a kind of a false scientific quality to it, rather than just coincidental or serendipity. Oh yeah, I mean, we live actually in a kind of a way, a really magical environment. We live in a paradise where everything fits together.
I know.
So notice that, enjoy it, rather than worry about it and become afraid about it.
Yeah.
So let's finish the talk now, because I've actually got another call coming in about 30 minutes, and I need to rest the butt.
Yeah, of course.
Joe, I am so happy to see you again.
Yeah, me too. I'm so happy also.
Call more often.
Okay.
And get in with our Sangha. We've got so many people who you could meet and be friends with.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dhammarato.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
Do some commenting and send some messages on the website also.
Okay, I will do that for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well,
We'll
see you. Okay. Bye-bye.